by Petra from Oyster, as well as Sam from Madkudu. And we are pretty much coming here today to go through a couple of Clay use cases and demo the new integration with Clay and Madkudu, which is one of the cooler ones that I've seen come out as of recently. I'm sure anybody who's done outbound in the past has had to deal with lead scoring, and how annoying and kind of subjective it is of a process. And I feel like this is a really solid solution to doing it, A, automatically, and B, with a little bit more science behind it. So yeah, I'll let Petra and Sam introduce themselves. They'll probably do a better job than I will, but yeah, Petra, feel free to chime in and give them your background.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here today to talk about Clay and Madkudu. I am the GTM Ops Manager at Oyster. If you're not familiar with Oyster, it's the global employment platform that enables companies to hire in 180 plus companies compliantly and help companies manage payroll and etc.
Awesome.
And I'm Sam, so co-founder and CEO of Madkudu. The accent is from France. I'm a recovering data scientist who's been in sales and marketing for the past 15 years. Madkudu, we are lead scoring, account scoring, and signal-based selling. So excited to be here with Clay and Petra today. And yeah, I like to see patterns. And I think Petra, Peter, Patrick, you have the three Ps. Like everybody says, you should have the three Ps. I wish my name was Paul, but that would be Sam for today.
That was like a tongue twister. I didn't even think about that. That's really that's similar. But yeah, I appreciate you giving the general background. For those who don't know, kind of a general overview of what the integration does, and we're going to go into this, but I figured I would just give everybody a background as to what this thing actually does that we're implementing in Clay. In short, if you've used Clay before, you understand kind of how the platform works, but it aggregates a variety of integrations into the platform. And what the Madkudu does is it allows you to score leads at scale by establishing an ICP within the Madkudu tool and then allowing AI to score for that ICP based on a variety of company information. And so instead of having to come up with 4 or 5 different data points you want to score by, and then coming up with kind of just in a way made up scores for each one of them, like how important is this to me? Like Madkudu just does a far better job of doing that with AI at scale. Petra has achieved a pretty wide range of success in using said integration for Oyster and made it a pretty incredible go-to-market motion as a whole. So Petra, it'd be awesome to just generally hear what you've been doing on the go-to-market side at Oyster from a high level, and then B, kind of how you've been using those two tools to supercharge that motion.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in our go-to-market team, we focus a lot on serving our outbound organization, and we look for opportunities to remove frictions from their processes so they can be more efficient and generate better results. We have a really solid sales team. They do a very good job at sales. So we wanted to remove everything that didn't have to do with the actual job. So that meant we looked at the entire journey from the moment we pick up an intent signal on an account until the moment a sales rep is actually reaching out to that account. And we found that it takes around 30 minutes for a rep to actually research an account, enrich it with data points, and qualify it before actually being able to make an impact. And with Madkudu, we're able to do that much faster as well, because we're able to immediately score accounts and immediately analyze if this is an account worth going after or if it's an account that we need to deprioritize.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, 30 minutes per account is pretty insane as well. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's in the space can imagine how many there are. So the days it saves you, probably even within a couple months, is pretty ridiculous. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. I would love to hear generally from Sam, just how you feel Madkudu's integration can be best used for companies. Obviously, the actual functionality, I'd say, is pretty straightforward, but at the same time, there's a lot that can be done with it, and I feel like there's a lot of great use cases that can be happen just from the tool by itself, or also integrated with Clay. So I'd love to hear generally what you think the best use cases would be for that integration.
Yeah, I think we'll cover some of it today. It's better to show instead of saying and instead of telling. But clearly, the account research, account qualification, I think as Petra said, that should go away. I think most of it should go away, and so that salespeople can spend more time on selling. I think sometimes people think of automation as a way to scale volume. I think we're seeing a lot of success by actually having more time for quality. So that's something I'm excited about. So much talk about AI for volume versus AI for quality. I think the use case that Petra mentioned is great on qualification of accounts. I'll also mention the behavioral side of things. I think there is the who is qualified right now as a customer in terms of fit. Are they a good fit for your product? But are they also in market right now? And who are the people within the account in market? So I think there is a good complementary aspect of Clay and Madkudu, where Clay will capture a lot of information about who the companies are, who the people are, and you can overlay the behavioral side of things, who in this account you should be having a conversation with, because they've done some behaviors that that you can leverage in your conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like from a more granular level, when you're using Madkudu, for those who like haven't gotten into the platform yet and understand kind of how it works, how do you actually define your ICP within the tool? Like, is it more of a, are you kind of just submitting a few different data points that you've deemed to be important? Are you kind of prompting it like you would ChatGPT to go find you your ICP and score based on that? How does a platform generally work from a high level? Because I know we're showing a lot of Clay in this, but I figured if people don't understand how to like actually define that ICP within Madkudu, it would be kind of difficult for them to use it.
Yeah, Petra, do you want to describe your experience, or do you prefer me to give an overview?
Yeah, I'm thinking now, Madkudu is our, go-to tool for scoring customer fit. We use it to crunch data from HubSpot, Salesforce, Lean Data, and other enrichment platforms like Clearbit and now Clay to predict which leads and which accounts are likely to convert. So the Madkudu model is actually trained on our customer data. So it knows what to look for, and it can also actually tell us like who are the best leads and best accounts to engage. So yeah, I think data is coming from our core systems. Anyone here in ops understands how that works, and maybe Sam, you can add more to that, maybe a bit less technical.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
one quick question. So you pretty much, so in theory, you can connect all of your external tech that has all that enrichment data into Madkudu and allow it to use that data as well. So like, for example, if you had intent data that might be in your CRM or something, you can sync that with Madkudu and have it score based on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, I think, to think that in 24, we're still like putting points and that we have to think about. And I think there's a lot of question about trust between sales, marketing, and go-to-market, because most of the time, I think those points do not translate into revenue. So putting some AI into it, I think, saves time, but also create more trust if done the right way. And one thing that's very critical there is to have that openness. So having a platform that is not like a black box. So you mentioned like, is it a ChatGPT type of interface? No, because ChatGPT will not tell you where the data is coming from, where those inferences are coming from. So the platform, do a lot to explain where it's coming from and give you control, because the past might not reflect where you want to go. So having that hybrid mode between what the platform tells you statistically, but also what you want to do. So that's an important aspect of any qualification process.
Yeah, I feel like that's especially important now with AI kind of being a pretty new-ish thing still. Like, I feel like a great example of a company that doesn't do this maybe as well is when you're using Google and they kind of have that AI search thing at the top of your search now. And sometimes it's just not accurate. Like sometimes I'll Google something and it'll just return me blatantly false data. And I'm like, I kind of wish you told me more about how you came to this determination, which is why I think it's important to have tools that give you its thinking on top of its output. And I'm sure like once AI becomes more developed down the line, it won't be as necessary because you'll kind of just trust it. You'll be like, okay, well, it's never been wrong yet. But right now, I feel like it's pretty frequent where it is. Another example of this is if anybody's been in Clay before and used Claygen, like the AI scraping tool that
Oh
we
yeah.
have, sometimes it just comes up with the wrong answer. And granted, it's getting significantly better because we just have better AI models that are able to, scrape correct data. But the only way in which you can actually determine how it came up with the wrong answer and tweak the prompt to come up with, a better solution is to have it explain to you how it did that. And that's why like the reasoning feature within Collision is just awesome. But in short, yeah, I think it is really important to have something telling you where it's getting data from. Like otherwise it's just like, okay, like, is it a high quality lead? Like, how do you know that, you know? So
Especially, I think, and Peter, I think, has way more stories than I have, but on a customer-facing interface, like you do a, I don't know, you do a summary of a call and you have like something that's inaccurate. I think that's fine. Like nobody's gonna scream about it. But I mean, you have OpenAI knocking at your door asking for a demo, and for whatever reason, like the qualification is wrong. I mean, someone's gonna scream very, very loudly, and so the cost of an error is pretty expensive.
yeah, even like especially let's say you're doing outreach using Clay, because I know when you're using the Clay integration, as you guys will see in a second when we demo it, like it tells you kind of the main reasons it's come up with that score for a specific lead. Having that, you know, well, A is incredibly helpful because you're able to see like, okay, these are all true data points. So like the reason they came up with the score is accurate. And then also, you know, if you were to reference that in an email and it wasn't accurate, that would be an issue. And so again, it's very important to have it actually work. Have you, I'm assuming since as AI models have improved over time, you've just seen this get significantly better too, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure in the beginning it was kind of like just using basic, you know, scoring math like a human would, but I'm sure at this point it's gotten even more powerful.
100%. I think we have more and more data. I think Clay, that's why Clay is a fantastic partner, because a lot of the accuracy comes from the quality of the data and the coverage of data. So I think like having Clay being able to collect data from multiple sources, combine it, waterfall it, I think just make that accuracy even better beyond just the statistical modeling. One thing we haven't touched on as well is what do you do with the insight that you get? So the part around execution. So Petra was mentioning like the part around having the sales team work the leads. That's a critical piece. We see the world in two ways. One is 100% automation. And I think, Patrick, like with Clay, you are able to actually send emails on behalf of reps directly. And that's as a game changer. But there is also augmentation of your sales team with insight that they can see in their CRM. So that's those two aspects also increase, I think, the conversion rates in ways that are just beyond the statistical modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it is pretty important to segment those two groups as well. Like there are people who just don't want to fully automate their top of funnel for whatever reason, whether it's they have sales reps that they feel do a better job or like there's a variety of reasons you would want to do that. Like there are especially high priority accounts, like you don't always want to automate that if your deal size is massive and you only have so many accounts in a TAM. So I think using that data can be helpful for both segments, obviously. Like when you're automating it, it's as you'll see, pretty cool to be able to segment which channel you're sending it out on and what tools you're using based on a score. But then also just enabling sales reps is super helpful too. It's the type of information that when combined with like, let's say a CRM, you can just suddenly now have an account score automatically created for every account in your CRM. And that's just obviously a massive game changer. Kind of in that same vein, Petra, I was interested to hear like what the kind of aha moment was for you when you started using these tools. Like obviously I feel like there was I feel like with any onboarding of a new tool, there's at least kind of an underlying skepticism as to whether it's going to work or not. Because especially when they're AI based, because people just throw that word around a lot, you know, and sometimes it's just not all it's made out to be. But like, what was the moment where you were kind of like, okay, this is actually worth my time?
So when I was scoping out this problem last year, I mentioned we were looking at making our intent journey as frictionless as possible. When I was scoping it out, I was looking for tools out there that could help me do part of the eliminate some of the frictions, not all of them. I didn't know it was possible to eliminate every single friction in the journey. So I was looking for tools that do maybe waterfall enrichment. I was looking for tools that do, for example, like more enrichment data sources. But then when I landed on Clay, it just clicked in my head, something that I've been doing for the past 10 years manually with different people, having to hire people to do research, manual research, like you're paying people to do research and to build these lists. I was able to do with a few clicks myself on Clay. So that was the aha moment. It's like, why have we been doing something so manually for so many years while we can do it now? And then with Madkudu, what's great, a great simple example for anyone here working at an enterprise is usually you have your outbound sales team and a big part of their job is doing self-sourcing. So having to go out there and self-source accounts. They find these accounts and in whatever way, they add them to the CRM or to the tool that they're using. And then they have to wait for those to be scored with the system that they're using for scoring, maybe certain points, etc. What's great about actually doing self-sourcing from within Clay is that while you're building your list, you can actually get immediate scoring from Madkudu. So you can tell if this account is even worth pursuing or not before even uploading it to the CRM. And that can be done straight from Clay. So the aha moment is being able to automate this entire journey with one tool.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good point, actually. The fact that you can qualify leads before even having to manage them later on. Like it would take, like what I think a lot of people don't understand is that it not only took 30 minutes per account, but sometimes it would take 30 minutes to research an account just to realize that they're not worth reaching out to, right? So like that's just both demoralizing for anybody having to do that research and also just like a pretty massive waste of time. So yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of benefit there. But yeah, I figured maybe I can show you kind of what I like how the integration works just for everybody watching this, how I used it to kind of used it within Clay to segment my outbound. I think it's a really cool use case, honestly, for a variety of reasons. So I'll share my screen real quick and show you guys generally what I built out. All right. Petra, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so from a high level, what this table does is it scores a bunch of leads that I had from a series of accounts, and based on the score of that lead, I put it into a specific flow. So there are pretty much three destinations for these leads. The first one is to HubSpot, just so sales reps can manage them. The second one is a multi-channel campaign, and the third one is an email campaign. And the reason I segmented by that is ideally we want to prioritize reps only handling accounts that are super like important. Um, the multi-channel campaign is higher conversion than email, but not as high conversion as maybe a sales rep doing it manually. And so we're getting kind of our mid-tier accounts and sending it to the multi-channel campaign. And then all the accounts that are deemed like decent or not that good relative to our ICP, we're sending to an email campaign. So I have, as you can see, like 30,000 companies in here. Full transparency, I did not enrich all of these because I don't have like a million credits. But you'll see kind of how it operates from like a small batch of them. First, I just use Clay to find their work email, which if anybody doesn't know how to do that, you just click add enrichment, type in email, and all you have to do is throw in their, I think, name and company's domain. Yeah, that's it. And then you get their email right here. And we need this email because to use the Madkudu integration, you have to use the person's email as an input. So I'll show you how the Madkudu integration works right now. It is called Get Company Lead Score from Email. You throw in their email and you literally just click run. And from there, you'll see that it finds, I mean, honestly, it hasn't really it's not found people for me yet. But when you click on it, you get results. And then you can click and you can see all this information about the person. And when you click on customer fit, you can see the person's score, their segment, and then the top signals that it formats, right? So like it tells you pretty much, is it matching my ICP details that I gave it or is it not? I'm using Clay's default one. So if you don't have a Madkudu API key, it's going to pretty much score for B2B SaaS, SMB mid-market. And then when you create a Madkudu account, you can actually put your own ICP in there like, Oyster did, which is obviously way more helpful than just using the default one. So from there, I popped out the score of the lead and the top signals just so I could kind of go through them and make sure that they're actually accurate. And you can see here that I pretty much use a series of conditional runs to send them to different campaigns. So you can see down here, past number 10, it says run condition not met for when I'm looking for this company's revenue. So this is kind of a revenue waterfall, and my goal is to find obviously the revenue of the company. But I set it so if the person's score is not above 93, then it doesn't look for their revenue, which obviously saves an obscene amount of credits. I mean, like the revenue integration takes like 5 or 10 credits a row. So it saves you a ton of pretty much enrichment cost to do it this way instead of enriching all of the leads no matter what the score are. So you can see I did revenue for all the leads above a 93 score. I then enriched them and sent them to HubSpot right here in this little send to SDRs integration. So I created contacts for any lead that was above a 93 score. For the one below that, I wanted to write a custom first line based on news about the company and send it to a multi-channel campaign. So this is for kind of our mid-tier leads. So I use Clay to find recent news about a company. Then I prompted OpenAI to write a first line based on a significant event, which of course was found from the news. And you can see here, it's like, congrats on the new AI personalization tool launch. Congrats on the new $200 million funding round. You get the point. It's just writing a first line that we're sending to this multi-channel campaign. And lastly, I figured for the lower tier leads, you're not going to want to spend enrichment credits or spend any money on finding more data about these contacts. Maybe just put them into a generic email campaign. So I don't do any enrichments for the people below that and just added them to a smart lead campaign. So you can see here that not only is it great for vetting out leads that might not be a best fit for your ICP, but on top of that, it allows you to save a ton of money in credits because like you're only now reaching out to the people that are actually worth reaching out to. And the really hyper personalized stuff, if you decide to automate that, can just be done for the leads that are worth enriching. And you can send all of your top ones to SDRs to have them manually manage them because I feel like a lot of people are constantly conflicted as to whether they should go fully into automation or continue using SDRs. I think the answer is kind of in the middle. Like you should 100% still utilize a sales team, but only for the accounts that are actually worth reaching out to. And then you can kind of automate the remaining top of funnel. So from a high level, it's pretty much how it works. Like it's really just scoring leads and then sending them to a different flow based on their score. And obviously, if you guys have any questions about that, happy to help. But that's kind of a high level rundown of the flow. But I figured after that, Sam, I would be interested to hear, like, are there any other cases that you've seen either in Clay or just in general using Madkudu that people have found massive utility in that I haven't, that I'm missing?
Yeah, no, I love the demo that you did. And you mentioned like saving some of the credits, allowing to go deep on some of the leads that you have there. I think if we look also at the use cases from like a go-to-market motion, ABM is something that I think a lot of us do, and prospecting comes and an outbound comes into it. So creation of target account list. I like what Petra and you talked about doing it outside of Salesforce first, because otherwise the alternative is often you have to load everything into Salesforce. You end up having a very polluted CRMs with plenty of accounts that are just noise. So I think like Petra's way of doing it makes a lot of sense. Do it first in Clay, do the tiering of accounts, work with your sellers to have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then do not load all the accounts that don't make sense. So for account list creation, that's a fantastic, I think, use case to look at the account level. So that's one I would mention. Another use case, I think, that's for companies with multiple products or different type of features, you can also do multiple scores for different product lines. So now you can look at those accounts. What's my first outreach? So a good use case there is to segment your accounts based on the likelihood to be interested by one of your products and one of your use cases. So that's very helpful, I think, on the sales side and to get better conversion rate.
That's really cool. So you can import, like, let's say hypothetically, you have a list of leads in Clay. You can import them and use the integration to find the best fit for a specific product instead of all of them, for one of them.
That's right.
That's really, yeah, that's actually crazy
Yep.
helpful. I feel like there's a lot of companies who have several offerings that would probably gain a lot of benefit from that. Like, because I mean, I've seen scoring systems set up for one product or service, but it takes so long to set up several and have them all run concurrently. So that is really helpful, actually. Wow, I was not aware. I wasn't even aware that feature existed. So good to know. You learn something new, even if you're hosting these things, I guess. But awesome. That sounds great. I feel like we could open it up to any questions unless you guys have something else to add. But I'm interested to see if anybody has comments, questions about the integration in general. And if not, I can easily come up with some. One I actually had for Petra is, where do you guys source your leads within Clay and then use Madkudu to score them, or do you source them elsewhere and then import them into Clay? Like generally, where do you guys do it? Because obviously you were saying like beforehand, it was kind of a pain for a lot of your people in your sales team to source the accounts like manually. Was there like a system you guys have for doing that now, or yeah?
Yeah, we have a pretty extensive tech stack at Oyster, so we have access to almost every enrichment tool out there, and different teams use different tools. So that's why I think Clay was a great solution to consolidate a lot of these tools. We still use other tools. We haven't, let go of other tools because they're used differently. What we do with Clay is that the GTM operations team can actually take control of qualifying inbound and outbound leads, while maybe different teams in the org can use the enrichment tools for different purposes. So yeah, we use other tools.
Awesome. Sounds good. Also, what's kind of your experience so far using intent data at Oyster? Have you guys had like, well, first of all, are you using it? And then secondly, are you having some success doing so? And then I guess thirdly, I know I'm asking so many questions at one time, but like, are you using that intent data for like as part of your lead scoring in Madkudu?
That's a very good question that can take a whole hour for intent data. We actually have several sources of intent. And that was also the trigger to actually going and looking for a tool like Clay, is that we have intent signals coming in from several different tools, and they also feed into several different tools. So let's say our first party intent data, which is who's visiting, like which companies are interested in our website, etc. Being able to use that data and further enrich the account was a bit challenging because it lived in different systems. So being able to send all of that to Clay and then use Clay to add extra enrichment points has been very helpful. So if I would give an example, let's say a company is visiting your website and then you want to actually qualify if this company fits your ideal customer profile, you could add it to Clay. You could have Madkudu score the account, but then on top of the scoring, sometimes you want to look for extra signals. Maybe you have something so unique and so niche to your product that you need to find out if that company has that or if that company is showing signals for that. So you can use Clay to go and find those extra enrichment points from whatever data source you want, and then put all of that together, verify that this account that is interested in you is actually a high quality account or not a high quality account, and then push that to your sales team.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. And then with that intent data, obviously I know you're like a pretty big power user of Clay. But have you been using Clay mostly for sales enablement? So just sending all of this data to salespeople, or have you kind of experimented at all with the the new wave of like outbound automation tools? I mean, everyone's always talking about like smart lead instantly, like growth machine. Like, have you guys kind of dabbled in that yet, or have you found more success in just sending that data to sales teams and letting them run with it?
We have it pretty integrated with a lot of our systems. So we don't use tools like Smart Lead. We use different sales engagement tools like SalesLoft and similar tools. So we have it integrated with those tools. Right now, the integration is not very straightforward, although it is possible. So we have it integrated. We have Clay integrated with SalesLoft. We have it integrated with Salesforce, Lean Data, HubSpot. What else? Yeah, I don't know. Every single day I get a new request saying like, hey, can we plug Clay into this? Can we plug Clay into that? So I feel like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's possible, yeah.
So they're just like slamming you with the most insane tech stack ever. Like I feel like every like most of the companies I work with have like two pieces of tech that they want to plug in, but you guys are just like honestly, that's the best way to do it though. I feel like most companies are always hesitant, so it's good to see you guys are actually doing that.
Mhm.
I have a question for Sam as well. Like when you're customizing your intent scoring, how do you suggest people kind of approach that? Like with regards to customizing their scoring, I should say. So like obviously I think the determining what to score is kind of straightforward. Like you just know your ICP, you know what data points are important. When you're using Madkudu to determine or to kind of like let's say create this AI that helps code, what would be the best way to approach it?
Yeah, I think that the intent piece is a big topic, and sometimes there's confusion between interest and intent. So, like going to like attending a webinar, does that mean you have intent to buy, just interest in the topics? And I think a lot of vendors out there are selling a bit beyond what's actually true, right, on intent. But I think that's where like having a more data-driven approach is amazing. I see very little like visibility on what activities actually correlate to some actions. So I think like step number one is there are two things that usually we evaluate signals on. One is coverage and the other one is lift. So you take, let's say you have G2 activities. So if someone looking at a competitor or looking at your page on G2, what percentage of your account you see that activity for? So that's the coverage. And if it's just 1%, that's the signal that applies to a very niche part of your target account list. But when they do, how much of an impact it has on pipeline creation or revenue. So if you look at all your different signals, I think that's an easy way to see what signals matter or not. And the platform, Madkudu, for example, like automate that process for you. So you can quickly like that visibility across your website, G2, anonymous traffic, LinkedIn engagement, job openings, those kind of things, all of those intent signals that you have. One quick note on that one, combination of signals is also something that's very interesting to look at, because what we found is sometimes like one individual person doing some activity is not as strong as having multiple people in an account having a little bit of engagement. So that's a much stronger signal of intent, even though there's just having one person super interested versus having three person slightly engaged with you.
Yeah, for sure. I very heavily agree with your first point that like some intent data providers are kind of stretching it a little bit, you know, like I don't know. I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on this, but sometimes I'll see kind of these like black box intent data providers that are like, yeah, the company scores this because like there's somebody at the company who's like maybe searching this specific keyword and like they kind of aggregate all these together and create their own scoring mechanism and they just kind of run with it. I'm always skeptical to that because I'm like, how much do you really know A, like the customers and B, the industry? And yeah, I don't know. To me, it's still a little iffy at the very least. Steve commented kind of something similar in the chat that was like, intent data has a long way to go in order to be like less generic and more targeted. I fully agree with that. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of like a catch-22 because intent data at the end of the day is just like scraping publicly available data points about a person, or like, you know, intaking information from that person's activity that you might have set up. So for example, like a form, and just you know, referencing that in outbound or using it to score leads, but like there's always a limit to how much you can actually find out about somebody, you know? Like it would be awesome if you could just get all of your prospects entire, or maybe not entire, but like search history about your products. And you know, just be like, okay, well, they 100% want my, you know, want my thing. And there's some strong intent signals like RB2B where you can, you know, see your website visitors and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's more of a data problem than anything. Like we've have pretty much every intent signal now that is possible to get without breaching privacy laws. So like it's kind of hard to make it less generic without like there being some sort of revolutionary new tech that comes forward. To me, the best example, honestly, is RB2B. Just like being able to see who visited your website wasn't possible before. Now it is possible and like kind of legal depending on where you live. So like you can do that, but there's always going to be something there. So somebody asked, "Hey Patrick, regarding the Clay table you just showed us or other intent prediction tables, could you configure it to auto update in Clay? Specifically, can it automatically move prospects between stages based on their lead scores?" Yes, absolutely. So there's two ways to do this. The first thing is to create a streaming table. So having data come into Clay automatically from some source. So one example of this could be a HubSpot list. Another example could be RP2B streaming leads into a table. And from there, when you turn a table on in Clay, all of the integrations run automatically. So it can immediately score the lead. It can immediately send them into a specific flow and immediately put them into an outreach sequence if you want to automate it. That can all be done automatically. So as long as you can find a way to automatically stream leads into a Clay table, the entire rest of it by design is automated, which is I think what's so powerful about it. Like sometimes you don't even have to set it up. Um, so yeah, that I would say in short, yes, you absolutely can. That's kind of what makes it so powerful. If you had to do it manually, it probably wouldn't be, it'd still be helpful. I mean, you can still send Clay data to reps and have it be helpful, but not nearly as cool as just you never touch it again. It just does it. That's my favorite part about building these things is like when I don't never have to touch it again and it just like does the prospecting for me. So, but yeah, back to the point I was making before. I'm very skeptical on some of these intent data providers. I'm like, where are you coming up with this data? Like, 6sense will tell you, and I'm not even hating on 6sense. I'm just sometimes I'm just like, how did you even figure that out? Like, how did you find out somebody at that company searched that? And you know, it's interesting. Leo said
On that
could
one, yeah, the testing.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
So yeah, just quick because sometimes I get emotional on those things where I was trained as a scientist, and I think beyond like what we believe, it's also like just testing it. I think we in marketing and in growth we often test everything, but for some reason we do very little testing with data. So if there is a like a lift, great. If there is not, I mean, there's just not no lift. So testing it, I think with Clay Madkudu can be a great way to quickly like figure out if it's something worth spending money and time on or not.
For sure. And this is probably more of a Sam question, but Leo asked, could scoring come from LinkedIn profile instead of email? Is that on the roadmap? Because obviously right now you have to put your email in to run the integration. Is, is there a possibility in the future you could do LinkedIn profile as well?
Ooh, I like that one. Today, I think you know that better. But you take the LinkedIn profile, get the email, and then use the email for the enrichment. But that's something we're looking at as well, from getting directly like the LinkedIn profile as input, and then getting the scoring and signal and segmentation out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could definitely use the LinkedIn profile now for sure. I mean, that's what I did actually. Like in the Clay table I built, I enriched the person's LinkedIn using the link that, I found using Clay, and then got their company's domain and their name and found their email and then put it into Madkudu. So there's a workaround to doing it, but right now it's not directly being done. And then Johanna said, can you share a copy of the table with us? Yeah, I totally can. I'll put it in like a text blast to everybody in this call. And yeah, we're also Peter's recording. We're planning on sending it to everyone in the text blast as well as putting it on YouTube.
Patrick, I love that Ned had a question. I think that one is interesting because people will have different views on it regarding should you reference the intent data in your outreach, or do you just use it as a way to find where the fish are?
So my take on this is that if you can reference it in a way that flows well and ties directly to your value prop, you should do it. And so I almost always, maybe not almost always, but I'd say maybe 70% of the time, reference the intent data in my outreach, unless it's something that I either A, thought would be creepy. For example, I'm never going to be like, saw you visited my website. To me, that's always been a little weird. I don't want to say that in my copy. But yeah, I think if it ties directly into your value prop, which intent data should at the baseline anyway, I think it's worth referencing in your emails. So one really common thing we do in Clay for a lot of our clients is to create an intent signal waterfall. So we come up with 5 or 6 intent signals that tie into the value prop pretty well. So for example, somebody just got hired maybe in a sales role, and let's say hypothetically we want to sell them Clay. We're like, hey, congrats on this on the new role. Figured you're trying to supercharge your sales team now that you just got here, or something like that, right? So we get like 5 or 6 of those, waterfall them, and then whatever one is found on a specific prospect, we will reference that in a first line of an email. And I found it works quite well. And I like to do it because A, it shows the prospect that you've done your research on them, and B, it's getting something relevant about the prospect and tying it into your value prop in front of them. So like they could maybe they could come to that same conclusion themselves, like if you didn't say it, but like it's a lot easier to be like, you just got hired at a new job, which means you're probably trying to make a splash in your sales org, and here's the way to do it, right? That like you can kind of just like laying it out for them in the messaging, which is why I'm a big fan of doing it. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of to each their own, but to me personally, it's worth doing. Someone said, what unusual or atypical data sources have you found useful for account research or sales signals? Oh, that's a good one. I feel like for me, all the unusual or atypical ones are just the ones that aren't integrated directly with Clay. I found, let me think. Gosh, it really depends on the use case. Like specific data points, I have a lot of examples for. Like one time we pretty much used Google shopping results along with like some AI prompting and store leads to figure out the average order value of an e-com store. And we would use that average order value, combine it with their web traffic, um, and pretty much make a determination as to how much money they're probably making. And then we use that for kind of a pitch, being like, hey, I saw this many people visit your website with an average order value of blank. You're probably if you increased pretty much if you increase your website speed by this much, you would make like an extra $100,000 a month, right? So like that one was always good. And but honestly, site speed's a good one depending on what you're selling. Um, Website visitors are always my favorite. I know I've been pitching RB2B this whole time. I promise they're not paying me to do this. I just think it's so good. Like every time I run a website visitors campaign for a client, it just almost always gets good results. Like because they're on your website. So if you haven't used RB2B, I highly recommend it. Um, Guys, do you have any? Sam or Petra? I'm kind of blanking.
Go
I
ahead,
think,
Petra. I have a few, but I want to listen to you.
yeah, maybe it's not so atypical. I mean, the atypical ones I'll keep to myself, but for some that you are maybe familiar with, or if you're trying to reach a prospect in a specific industry, you can use Clay to, find out what if you're trying to steal a prospect from a competitor, you can find out what others are reviewing that competitor. You can check their lowest reviews, and then you can use that content in your messaging when you're reaching out to the prospect. So that is very helpful and something you can only do with tools like Clay. So I think that's an interesting source. Looking at G2 reviews or, Trustpilot, Capterra, whatever tool you look at.
Yeah, Petra, I did one that was so similar for that for a client. We scraped all of their competitors' LinkedIn followers. I will not say how I did that. You can figure it out. I will get banned probably. But we scraped all the competitors' LinkedIn followers, and then we did that exact thing where we got all the reviews. We pretty much just like got AI to tell us what all of their big downsides are, and then referenced their downsides in messaging to their followers, trying to sell them on the new thing. And it worked really well. So like that one's really good. I think uh yeah, I wish I thought of that one. That was a really good one. Sorry, feel free, Sam, to, you know.
No, I think we should do a full session on it and asking everyone here to share the little secrets as much as they can, because I think we have a lot of creative people in the room. I'll share maybe like two quick ones that we found to work pretty well across a variety of our customers. But one is job postings. I think there is a ton of information in what the company is trying to do or what a specific team is trying to do. I think a lot of people talk about filings, but the filing is often way too strategic and high level and hard to use versus job postings. Will tell you, okay, if you are like selling to the IT team, they will tell you what technology they use, what they're trying, what their challenges are, because when you hire someone, it's to solve a challenge. So using AI to review the job postings and identify that, we found that to be pretty powerful. The other one is LinkedIn engagement. I think if you customers are on LinkedIn, there is so much going on there. And specifically, I think a lot of companies have great brands on LinkedIn and people engaging with them. So looking at what posts your prospects are resonating with, what comments they're putting, and leveraging that by overlapping your target account list and using that either in the outreach or just for the scoring piece. So those are like pretty powerful signals.
Yeah, those are two really good ones. I like the job one in particular because you can set up an integration in Clay that just has them streaming in constantly. And so like using Apify and Clay, you could just have them keep routing in there. And then LinkedIn engagement's also always great. It's always a little iffy. I mean, you can use Phantom Buster, I guess, to usually get LinkedIn engagement, but that one's always great as well. Also using tools like Common Room to kind of route like, LinkedIn engagement to several other things to kind of give you an idea of what a prospect's doing is always helpful too. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll plug Madkudu as well. And we do that, but I hope Clay adds that as well directly.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. It's crazy. They come out with new stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you would know this best considering we're releasing an integration with you right now, but they're just churning out integrations. I use the tool every day and sometimes I'm still finding new stuff about it. Like they just came out with this thing called workbooks, which is just like having a bunch of clay tables in one, kind of like you would with like a Google sheet, but you can kind of like tab over into different sheets. I didn't even know that existed for like 2 weeks, and it was like when it was in beta. I feel like it's just, yeah, it's crazy how much they're doing. But anyway, we'll see if anybody else has any more questions, and if not, we can wrap it up. We're kind of nearing time, so yeah, feel free to shoot any over. Somebody said, could someone share the low reviews for competitors and Capterra integration with Clay? Petra, you said like you're using Capterra to find the reviews.
Well, using different sources to actually capture that data. You can even use Claygent to, visit Capterra and analyze the page. And so yeah, you can build a table on Clay, use Claygent to visit specific pages, analyze what's there, and then you can use that content to either craft a message within Clay or to trigger a specific workflow on your systems.
Wait. All right. Anybody else? Going once. Alrighty. Well, I think we are good. Appreciate everybody hopping on. This was a oh, somebody asked one. And at the buzzer. Can we use Clay and Madkudu to predict which ICP competitors are targeting? I mean, if they're competitors, then ideally they're targeting the same ICP as you. But I'm trying to figure out if there's like a way to actually do that systematically. I guess, kind of.
Yeah, I think you can track who they're engaging with on LinkedIn, for example, or who they're connecting with, and then pull that into Clay and then use Madkudu to score.
Yeah,
That's
you could
super
also
creative.
use
Yeah.
you could also use OpenAI to like you could put a list of competitors into Clay, use OpenAI to try to determine approximately what ICP that they are, and then source a list of leads based on that and score. I don't know. Yeah, that's I like you could in short, you could kind of do it. Yeah, you could kind of do it. Also, I found there's this tool. I'm completely blanking on the name. Somebody feel free to research this if they're interested. But there's a tool now where you can access your competitor's pipeline, like in CRM, but you have to show them yours. Like,
Crossbeam, yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. So if you
Awesome.
really want to see it, show your cards too, and you can use a platform like that. I always thought that was kind of crazy.
Not with your competitors, but with your partners, yeah.
Oh yeah, with your partners. Sorry,
Yeah,
not with your competitors. But sometimes it's the same thing. Like yeah, sometimes it can be the same thing.
But great signals for sure. I think that's the Crossbeam is a no-brainer for I really like we use them and very happy.
We
Awesome.
we used Crossbeam to find out that Oyster was a co-customer.
That's awesome. All right. Well, awesome. Appreciate you guys hopping on. I'm gonna hop off. Hope you guys living in the US have a solid Labor Day weekend and soak it all in. The remaining pieces of summer.
Awesome.
And yeah, we'll send the recording over. But appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we'll send out a recording. Thank you for joining, Sam. Thank you for joining, Petra. I really appreciate everyone hopping on.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.